Welcome back to the What We're Watching podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jeni, and today we're talking about Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
A classic.
We had to.
We had to. This movie was actually a recent request, and it's perfect for the end of the school year, so this was great timing.
I was thinking that. Now, have you seen this movie a lot?
I saw it a fair amount, like when I was in high school, but I hadn't seen it in a really long time. How about you?
Me too. I think my first time watching it was in high school, and I was so obsessed with it.
Me too.
But I don't think I've watched it since, but I remembered everything.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I'm like, I don't remember that movie. No, I remember this one.
In this episode, we're talking about Matthew Broderick's Broadway background, the High School Musical choreographer that worked on this movie, and, of course, all of the iconic scenes and quotes that are still famous today.
Yay.
Quick reminder to follow us on social media at What We're Watching Pod, because that's how we got the idea to do this podcast, was because one of you guys sent it to us, so thank you for that.
We love your recommendations and your requests.
The logline for Ferris Bueller's Day Off is, a brash, cocky high school senior tired of skipping school to spend a boring day at home is determined to enjoy an epic day roaring around his favorite Chicago sights, enlisting his best friend and girlfriend to join him on the adventure.
Wow. I can't believe all of this takes place in one day.
I know.
One of my favorite things about this movie is Ferris breaking the fourth wall and looking into the camera.
Same.
It's so iconic, and I feel like a lot of things try to copy that nowadays. It's still unique and different, but this really crushed it.
Agreed. It is one of my favorite things about him as a character, and it reminded me of my favorite thing about Modern Family, where like they'll be talking and then they'll just give a look to the camera.
I forgot about that.
Like, you're seeing this, right? It's like such a clever way to break the fourth wall. I love it so much. I think it's hilarious.
I think The Office does that too. Yeah, there's a whole genre of this.
So Ferris Bueller's Day Off came out in 1986, and it was one of the highest grossing movies of the year.
That makes sense.
So very successful right from the jump. And that is probably because it was written and directed by the John Hughes. If you don't know, John Hughes was a famous writer and director who made a slew of movies in the 80s, including 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, She's Having a Baby, Beethoven, Home Alone, and more.
Why did I forget Beethoven was on the list?
It feels a little out of place. And to be fair, so does Home Alone. We talked about him a little bit in our Home Alone episode.
But do you know what's so funny is that when I was watching this, I was like, man, this movie is really reminding me of another movie. What is it? And then I was like, oh, it reminds me of Home Alone.
Really?
Yes, because of all of the little, like, not pranks, but he's got all of these things wired up to happen in these little sneaky ways to get out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And all of his little gadgets just remind me of Home Alone and all the like traps that were set and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Him rigging up like the dummy in the house was very reminiscent of Kevin, like setting all the traps in his house. You're totally right.
But it's not a poll that I would have made if we hadn't just watched Home Alone in December. So
The vibes felt very similar to 10 Things I Hate About You to me.
Oh, yeah. You know what? When I was in high school watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off and being obsessed with it, I was also obsessed with 10 Things I Hate About You. Same time.
This makes sense. It makes me so much more surprised that I never saw that movie until we covered it.
I know. Imagine your high school aged self with 10 Things I Hate About You.
They would have both been my favorite. I will say I'm a little bit scarred from this movie because this is the movie I used to tell people was my favorite movie for a long time. Like, it was just my go-to because I liked it so much. And then my senior year of high school, there was an English teacher that was like very cool. He was this like younger male teacher, and he was like very fun. And he was directing a one act that I was in, and I didn't have him as my teacher. We did like an icebreaker, and we went around and everyone said their favorite movie. And I said, this is my favorite movie. And he just looked at me and he was like, really? That's your favorite movie? I never would have thought that. And I was just immediately in my head, like, what is that supposed to mean? I'm probably way overblowing the way that he said it in my head, but it has clearly stuck with me. And ever since then, I've never said this was my favorite movie.
No, wait, that makes me so sad because he might have Maybe what he was thinking was he was just like, oh, Megan, I didn't realize you were so deep and cultured.
I think it's probably because I was such a goody goody that he was probably like, huh, that movie is like about this like rebellious teen. I don't know.
Little does this teacher know that this has impacted you your entire life.
I know. I'm sure he doesn't remember it at all. But I think about it more than I should.
You know, that is the most relatable thing I've ever heard because I have my fair share of those.
Okay, so I thought this was fun. This movie was choreographed by Kenny Ortega, who is the director of High School Musical.
The Kenny Ortega.
Yeah, we just talked about him. Isn't that wild?
That is wild. I could see it, though. I get it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, should we get into the cast?
Let's do it. Let's start with Matthew Broderick, who plays Ferris Bueller.
So Matthew Broderick was already well known on Broadway before he ever did Ferris Bueller, so that was surprising to me. He also did a couple of movies. He starred in War Games in 1983 and Max Dugan Returns, also in 1983, both before Ferris. And he's done a lot of Broadway shows, including The Producers that he did alongside Nathan Lane.
Wow, I didn't picture him as a Broadway kid, but now I can. Especially the performances that he has in this movie. It makes sense.
Totally. He has actually won 2 Tony Awards, one for his performance in Brighton Beach Memoirs and another for How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. So not only is he a Broadway star, he's a very accomplished one. Matthew Broderick has also done some iconic voice acting. He was actually the voice of the adult Simba in the Lion King movie.
Oh, you're unlocking something for me. I feel like I knew that.
Okay, I had no idea. So now I need to rewatch The Lion King because knowing that Ferris Bueller is Simba is just incredible. And it makes sense because Simba, adult Simba, especially like, you know, when he's in his like teen phase, is so endearing. And Ferris, like I feel like his number one quality is that he's so endearing, even though he's such a twerp. So I love this.
Yeah, maybe I didn't know this and maybe I was just having deja vu, but I think that's crazy. I love that.
So this I thought was crazy. During and after filming Ferris, he dated Jennifer Grey, who plays Jeni, his sister in the movie.
Weird.
Yes, which I think it's actually kind of rare that we hear about like people that play siblings dating in real life. This did happen with Parenthood. I think we talked about this with Lauren Graham. She dated one of her co-stars, but also true here. And they even got engaged in 1988.
Wow.
So they were together for years.
Serious.
So this is sad, and if you guys are familiar with Matthew Broderick, you probably know this. But in 1987, so a year after Ferris Bueller came out, Matthew and his girlfriend Jennifer Grey were involved in a fatal car crash in Ireland that killed 2 people. He also suffered serious injuries in the crash. He came away with a broken leg and a collapsed lung, and obviously a very tarnished reputation as well. So
was he the one driving? Is that why his reputation was tarnished?
That wasn't immediately obvious. Like I read like the initial headlines and it just said involved in fatal crash.
I heard that too though. I heard that it like kind of tainted Ferris Bueller.
Okay, I just looked it up and it does turn out that the accident occurred when Matthew Broderick and Jennifer Grey were driving on the wrong side of the road in their car rental because they were in Ireland and they drive on the other side of the road and it was raining. They had not been drinking, but 2 people died.
Oh no, that's awful.
Yeah, really tragic.
Oh, okay, well, I understand now the context.
Totally.
Yikes.
So a decade after that, he actually got married to Sarah Jessica Parker. We talked about this in our Sex and the City episode. They met through her brother, and they've been together since then.
Oh, yeah, they are the long-standing celebrity duo.
Very.
That we love to see.
And he has actually continued to stay active in TV and movies. He was in the recent movie No Hard Feelings, which was our first episode of the podcast.
Throwback.
I know. That was just a few years ago, and that's a really good movie, so I would highly recommend if you want to see grown-up Ferris Bueller.
Me too. He was so good in that movie. Okay, next we have Alan Ruck, who plays Cameron Fry.
Get this. Alan Ruck was 29 when Ferris Bueller filmed. That's right. Nearly 30, playing an 18-year-old, which I know that happens all the time. For some reason, though, I feel like we see a lot of women do that. Like there was a lot of in the news, or maybe just women get called out for it more because, you know, that's
misogyny.
Yes. Like Nicola Coughlan In Bridgerton, this gets brought up a lot about her because she's in her 30s playing a teenager. But yeah, Alan Ruck. It's very rare. I guess also, sorry, I'm all over the place, but men have facial hair. So I feel like it becomes really obvious when they get into their 20s and 30s a lot of the time. Like their build changes because they just mature a little bit later, whereas women tend to mature earlier. So
I've looked the same since I was 13.
Same. I have not grown since the 8th grade. So this seemed like really interesting to me because I do think he pulls off 18 convincingly.
That's so interesting because the whole time I was watching it and I didn't know his age, I was like, man, his voice is just so deep and like everything about him just seems more mature. Like this guy does not look like a kid to me is what I kept thinking.
So you picked up on it.
Yes, but that's watching it now. But especially the voices he's able to do. I know that maybe at 18 he was still doing those voices, but I don't know.
No, that's fair. I think in my head he is Connor Roy from Succession. That's like really what I know him from. I completely forgot that he was in this movie, and he's obviously so much younger in this movie than he is in Succession now.
Yeah, he looks like a baby to you.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
And he is. I mean, he does look like a baby in this.
Yeah, 29 is a baby. 29 is a fresh spring chicken, right?
There are no 29-year-olds talking right now.
None.
There's one. It's Megan.
It's me. So Alan Ruck was also a Broadway performer first, similarly to Matthew, and they had actually worked together on Broadway in a production called Biloxi Blues, and John Hughes cast Alan because of their existing rapport.
Do you know how old Matthew Broderick was at the time?
23.
Okay, so that's not that big of an age difference then.
I thought this was interesting. So after Ferris Bueller, Alan struggled a little bit with being seen only as Cameron, as like this anxious sidekick character. But he kept working steadily, mostly in supporting character roles, before he had a bigger comeback.
Okay, interesting.
So he kind of got, pigeonholed into this like sidekick character. In the 90s, he was in the show Spin City. And then, like I said, more recently, he was Connor Roy in Succession. So he's kind of been on a steady upward trajectory since then.
Good. Does he have facial hair now? I haven't seen this man. I don't watch Succession.
He did in Succession. Yeah, look him up.
Oh, he looks the exact same.
Yeah, he does.
But just with facial hair and it's gray. That is a trip. Next, we have Mia Sara, who plays Sloane Peterson.
In contrast to the boys, Mia was only 18 during filming.
And don't we see this a lot, too?
We sure do.
Great. So this 18-year-old is running around with a 29-year-old and 23-year-old.
Of course. So she had a very iconic start to her career because Ferris Bueller was her second film role, and her first one was when she played Princess Lily opposite Tom Cruise in the Ridley Scott movie Legend in 1985.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she came on the scene with a bang. However, I thought this was interesting. She never chased superstardom. Like, she did not then go on to become this mega movie star, even though she had all the success at the beginning. It just wasn't a priority for her. However, she did continue acting steadily. She was in the movies Time Cop, Jack and the Beanstalk, The Real Story, and Birds of Prey. And then later stepped back from Hollywood in the early 2000s to focus on writing poetry and raising her family.
Wow, iconic. Love that for her.
Yeah. She has had a few famous relationships. So she was married to Jason Connery, who is Sean Connery's son. And they were married from 1996 to 2002. And then later she married Brian Henson, who is the son of Jim Henson, the creator of The Muppets.
She loves a Nepo baby.
Loves a Nepo boy, yes. And they've been married since 2010.
Oh, wow. Good for them.
And fun fact about her, she actually didn't audition for Ferris. John Hughes cast her based on her performance in Legend.
Wow. That says something, honestly. I haven't seen Legend. I don't even know what it is, but must have made an impression.
So I forgot to mention this earlier, but there were a handful of actors that were also considered for the role of Ferris Bueller. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Now, before I say this should always come with a grain of salt because it's hard to know if any of this is ever true when you see online that people say like all of these actors and actresses were considered, but I think it's fun.
I believe them every time though.
I do too.
I just like don't know how far they got in the process, you know?
True. Yeah. Was it like somebody made a comment that they would be good Like a producer said that, or did they actually audition, or were they actually offered the role and turned it down? Hard to tell.
Who knows?
Okay, number 1 is Johnny Depp.
I see it. Yeah.
Agreed. Also, Anthony Michael Hall.
Oh, who is that? Remind me.
You would recognize him if you look it up. He's in The Breakfast Club.
Oh, yeah.
This one I also could totally see. Michael J. Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Anthony Michael Hall turned it down. He did turn it down.
Oh. Why? Why would you do such a thing?
I don't know. I'm sure he regrets it now.
I think Matthew Broderick is just like the perfect Ferris because he's exactly what Ferris is. Like he's charming and kind of like schmoozy.
Mm-hmm. But in an endearing way somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's great. I'm so happy that he ended up being Ferris. I think he was perfect.
Sometimes I wonder if they had gone a different direction with a different actor, if these movies would be just as popular because the script and the director and everything else was that good, or if it's the magic of the actor that really determines whether or not it takes off.
It's so hard to know. I think it's probably a little bit of both, always, or it's a mixed bag depending on which one. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about Jennifer Grey, who plays Jeni, Ferris's sister.
She's from Dirty Dancing. I feel like that's what everyone knows her from. And I would love to do an episode on Dirty Dancing one day. I believe my mom has requested it, but if anyone else wants to hear it, let us know. She's publicly discussed that one of her biggest regrets was getting a nose job, which I think she did not long after this movie came out. The surgery changed her appearance so much that she became less recognizable, even to those who were familiar with her from Dirty Dancing. Have you seen what she looks like now?
Yes, I looked her up and I did have the thought like, oh wow, she looks really different. But they were so young in this movie that I just was like, oh, I don't know. She just like matured and looked different. But that's so interesting.
I really do think she's kind of unrecognizable after because her nose was such like a character trait of hers. Like, I don't know. And it was so perfect for her.
Mm-hmm.
And if she wanted to get a nose job, fine. I'm supportive of that. But I hate that she regretted it and that she felt like she had to. And then what's worse is it actually affected her ability to get roles going forward. So something that she did because she thought it would help her career and help her get more roles actually made her less recognizable and kind of made her lose the momentum that she had from Dirty Dancing and Ferris Bueller.
Ugh, that's heartbreaking.
I know. I hate that for her. I hate that she still regrets it to this day.
That really sucks.
And she is the best in this movie. She is my favorite character. I love her.
I really like her too.
Okay, well, should we get into the movie?
Let's do it.
We open on Ferris Bueller, played by Matthew Broderick, dramatically faking sick to get out of school. He's doing the most here. He has clammy hands and he says he has a stomach ache. His parents totally fall for it. And his sister Jeni, played by Jennifer Grey, is not fooled and is instantly furious that Ferris is once again getting away with everything.
After his parents leave, Ferris talks directly to us, the audience, for the first time. He says, "They bought it. One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second." And then he opens the windows and reveals a gorgeous day outside and says, "How could I be expected to go to school on a day like today?" And we learn this is his 9th sick day this semester. And he goes on to give us his famous advice on how to fake out the parents and pretend like you're sick to miss school. And as he's talking about how childish high school is, he says, the famous quote, "Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it."
Love it. Did you ever fake sick to get out of school?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but there may have been like 1 or 2 times where I felt like just a slightly sore throat, you know?
This I definitely did. Exaggerated. I'm sure I did that. Yeah.
And then once it was clear to me that, oh, I could miss school and my mom was like worried about me, I was like, well.
I'm going to keep this one in my back pocket.
We cut to Ferris's teacher taking roll in class. He calls all the A last names first and then gets to Ferris and he says another extremely famous quote, "Bueller, Bueller, Bueller." And there's no response because Bueller is not there.
It's crazy to me that these 2 really famous quotes are both said in the first 90 seconds of the movie.
Like back to back.
Yeah. So then Ferris calls his best friend Cameron, played by Alan Ruck, who is actually homesick. And Cameron doesn't want to go anywhere, but Ferris manipulates him into playing chauffeur, insisting it's their duty to live a little. And then he tells us, the audience, if anyone needs a day off, it's Cameron.
The dean of students, Ed Rooney, calls Ferris's mom because she forgot to call in his sick day. Mr. Rooney says that Ferris doesn't have a good attendance record and that if he doesn't change, he won't graduate. As Mr. Rooney is talking, we see Ferris hack into the school's attendance record and change the number of his absences to 2 instead of 9.
Everyone at school is spreading rumors about Ferris's sickness, including that if he dies, he's going to donate his eyes to Stevie Wonder. So, like, we're just getting so far-fetched here. And we even see Ferris talk on the payphone to a few students at school, and he's making gross, sick coughing sounds with his keyboard. Like, he's set up his keyboard to, like, make nasty sounds, and he's playing them so that multiple people hear them on the phone to, like, further prove that he's sick to everyone.
The way his brain thinks miles ahead of everyone else is just incredible.
Yeah, he thinks of everything.
Sloane Peterson, Ferris's girlfriend, played by Mia Sara, gets released from school because her grandmother died. It is kind of interesting because she like immediately puts on her jacket when I think it's a school nurse or like an admin comes in, and she immediately puts on her jacket like she knows that it's for her.
Even though it's supposed to be this tragic surprise. Yeah.
Mr. Peterson, Sloane's father, calls Mr. Rooney's office, but Mr. Rooney thinks that it must be Ferris faking an excuse for his girlfriend. And he's really rude to him on the phone, and he even says that he'll let Sloane out of school when her dad produces the body of the grandmother. But then Ferris calls the front desk, and Mr. Rooney and his administrative assistant both panic because she's like, oh, Ferris is on the other line.
So that must actually be Mr. Peterson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we see that Mr. Peterson is actually Cameron with his deep voice.
Cameron tells Mr. Rooney that he, meaning Mr. Peterson, will be at the school to pick up Sloane in 10 minutes. And then as soon as he hangs up, Ferris and Cameron argue about this because now they actually have to go to the school and fake being Sloane's dad in front of Mr. Rooney because Cameron said that.
Ferris convinces Cameron to take his dad's prized 1961 Ferrari when they go pick up Sloane. Ferris wears a trench coat, hat, and glasses to pull off looking like Mr. Peterson. Sloane runs up to him, and then they start making out, and Ferris says, do you have a kiss for daddy?
And he says it in this like stupid little voice. It's really funny.
And Mr. Rooney watches it, and he's like, so that's how it is in that family.
The fact that this didn't just like confirm his suspicion immediately, and he just was like, it's kind of weird. Just hilarious.
And then the trio heads into Chicago.
Okay, now that we have our trio together for the movie, I have a little request for all of you listening.
Okay,
if you relate the most with Cameron, leave us a review right now. Just pause because you're probably very thorough and you think of everything, so let us know what you think. If you relate the most with Ferris, you must be the star, so leave us a 5-star rating. And if you relate the most with Sloane, who is the popular girl in this movie, send this episode to a friend.
Oh my gosh, that was so cute.
Thank you.
Love it. Meanwhile, the kids at school are collecting money for a Save Ferris campaign to help Ferris buy a new kidney.
The speed at which this becomes a like town level campaign is crazy.
I know. Mr. Rooney continues plotting to catch Ferris. This guy will not give up. He is just going for it. And honestly, I think he would be a happier man if he just gave up. You know?
Absolutely.
Cameron continues freaking out about his father's car, particularly when they park it in a downtown garage. And for good reason, because the valet drivers drive off with the car and go on a spree.
This was crazy to me because then they just let it happen.
I don't think they saw. Like, the valet driver drives away and he's like, oh, don't worry, I got it. And then I think his friend hops in the car when they're not looking.
Okay, so we see it. Got it.
I think so. Because I think Cameron is too tightly wound to even let it happen.
Yeah.
At the Bueller's house, Ferris's mom checks in on him, but his rig works He has a mannequin in his bed and is playing snoring sounds. And every time that the door opens, the mannequin rocks back and forth. And his mom totally buys it that it's him.
Then Cameron, Ferris, and Sloane hang out in Chicago. They have their whole day there. They go to the Sears Tower to see the view, and then Ferris tries to sweet talk their way into a fancy restaurant by impersonating Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago. And the host of the restaurant doesn't buy that he is actually Abe, but they play a phone trick on him where Ferris calls the police, or he claims to call the police on the restaurant phone so that the police can come and prove that he is Abe, I guess. But really, he's calling the restaurant. And so then the host has to go to another room where the other phone is to answer this incoming call. And Ferris puts Sloane on the line, who asks for Abe, as if she's like calling the restaurant to get in touch with Abe because she knew that Abe would be there to like prove that that really is Abe. Anyway, it works, and they are seated.
And they are so smart. Everything they do. Smart.
All the phone tricks. After they finish lunch at the restaurant, they narrowly avoid Ferris's father right outside by quickly jumping in a cab. I think it's actually a cab that Ferris's dad called, and he's distracted talking to like his coworkers, and so they jump in it. And then they go to a Chicago Bears baseball game. Is it Chicago Bears baseball game? Did I just make that up?
I think that's right.
The Cubs.
Bears, Cubs, same thing. All right.
Oops. Not a sports girl.
I was like, yeah, the Bears. Duh.
Definitely.
Mr. Rooney sneaks around the Bueller house trying to prove that Ferris is home, but he ends up getting attacked by the family dog, and he gets soaked by sprinklers. Every plan that he has completely backfires to catch Ferris. A bouquet from the English department even arrives with a card wishing Ferris a speedy recovery. Everyone loves him. What is that line that the administrative assistant says? Oh my gosh, hold on. She says, "Oh, he's very popular, Ed. The sportos, the motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, dickheads, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude." That just sums him up perfectly, I think.
The trio joins a street parade, and Ferris jumps onto a float to lip sync Dankeschön and Twist and Shout. And the entire city dances with him. There's construction workers, businessmen, everyone on the street. And this is one of the most iconic scenes in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Another iconic scene. Jeni, Ferris's sister, gets home and finds Ferris's mannequin in his bed. Mr. Rooney uses this as an opportunity to sneak in the house since Jeni left the door unlocked, so he helps himself and goes in. The two hear each other in the house, and they both think that they're hearing Ferris sneaking around, so they're both also sneaking around to try and catch Ferris in his lie. They both jump out at each other, like, "Ha, I caught you." Mm-hmm. But then they realize that they did not find Ferris, and Jeni screams the most hilarious scream, and then kick, kick, kick. She like kicks Mr. Rooney in the face, and it's so fast and it's so funny. And then she continues screaming and like runs upstairs, and I was dying laughing. Like I had to rewatch the scene because it just was so funny. She calls the police, and the police immediately ask her if her brother is feeling better. And she says, "Look, it's real nice that you hope my brother is feeling better, but I'm in danger, okay? I am very cute, I am very alone, and I am very protective of my body." I love her. Then she tells Mr. Rooney over the house intercom that the cops are coming. She has a scorching case of the herpes and her father's gun. And then he leaves. But his car is being towed outside, which is bad. On the trio's way home from downtown, they discover Cameron's dad's car has way more miles on it now than when they left, and Cameron freaks out. They stop at the beach while Cameron has a breakdown and goes completely catatonic. They can't do anything to get him to speak or like snap out of it. They go to Cameron's pool, and Cameron fake drowns so that Ferris has to save him. Actually, I was wondering, I was like, did he just fake it at the end and like snap out of it, or was it all? I don't know.
I don't know either. Jeni goes to the police station and meets this bad boy who got caught doing drugs, who's also stuck at the police station. This guy is played by Charlie Sheen, and he tells her to worry less about Ferris and more about herself. And they weirdly have this moment sitting on this couch of the police station.
And she's so rude to him at first, and I love it. I love
Yeah.
her. She's my favorite. I actually have a fun fact about this because I was curious about Charlie Sheen in this movie and why this is such a long scene. Kind of randomly, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's funny, but I was just like, this is weird. Apparently, his character was written in the script as having more of a backstory. So I'm going to read you what I found. In the original script, his character's name is Garth, and he was a friend of Ferris's who had dropped out of school because of issues with drugs. And there was a whole backstory where Ferris described Garth as a real outsider that he had befriended in middle school, and he did his best to try to help Garth recover from his substance abuse issues, but he was unable to convince him to change his ways. And as a result, Garth has become a criminal, ? This is what this article says, not what I say, and has destroyed his life. And that was supposed to give us a little bit more reasoning for why Ferris cares so much about taking care of Cameron. Because he didn't want Cameron to kind of go off the deep end like his friend Garth had.
Oh, interesting.
And then I think it's funny that Garth is about to say Ferris Bueller's name to Jeni and like suggest that she talk to him.
Yeah.
And she was like, if you say Ferris Bueller. Anyway, I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. So back to the movie, we see Cameron have a heart-to-heart with Sloane and Ferris where he says he's tired of being worried all the time and that this was the best day of his life. He also says he's really going to miss them next year.
I'm shocked that he said this was the best day of his life because he was just anxious the entire time.
Yeah. There's something that happens, I think, when he's in the pool, because afterwards he's like really trying to be a new version of Cameron. And I wish that we got a little bit more of that. Like we understood it a little bit more because it feels a little bit unearned.
Yeah. It's like he was meditating and that, well, I know he says something about that, but yeah, I wish we understood better. They run the car in reverse on a jack that keeps it in place in the garage because they think it will remove the miles that they added to the car, which is, you know, a choice. Ferris offers to manually change the odometer when they realize that this didn't work, but Cameron tells him not to. He says he's tired of his dad pushing him around and he's got to take a stand. Then he repeatedly kicks the car and yells about how his dad only loves the car. And I just feel so bad for him. Every time my mom and I talk about Ferris Bueller, she goes, poor Cameron.
Oh.
And I agree.
Yeah.
While he's kicking and beating up the car, he actually breaks the jack that the car is on. And because it's still running, it flies backward through a wall of glass windows into the woods down below. And it's dead.
Mm-hmm. Ferris immediately feels horrible about this and tells Cameron to blame it on him because he's the one that tried to convince him to take his dad's car out. But Cameron says that he wants to take the heat himself. He says, thanks anyway. And then we get a close-up on Cameron actually smiling. I guess because he just feels like very secure in this decision, like he's finally standing up to his dad in some way. And they play music in the background, and it feels like we're really seeing like the completion of Cameron's character arc.
Did we talk about this in a screenwriting class where the protagonist of the story is the person who changes the most?
Oh, I don't know if I did, but maybe that was one of the ones you were in, yeah.
Yeah, I want to say they used Ferris Bueller as an example, and they were like, who is the character who changes the most and goes through the most like arc in the story? And that's Cameron, so that makes him the protagonist.
Interesting.
I know. Is he the main character? No, but it's his journey.
Fascinating.
I know. Anyway, Miss Bueller goes to the police station to pick up Jeni, and after she talks to the cop says he hopes her son feels better.
Just is there for a completely unrelated incident with her other child, and everyone in the town knows that he was sick from school. It's just been so blown out of proportion.
She's confused, but she doesn't overthink it. Then she walks into the waiting area to find Jeni making out with the bad boy, Charlie Sheen.
Then Ferris drops Sloane off at her house and they make out. And then Ferris realizes what time it is and he runs off because he has to try to beat his parents home. And as he's running away, they both yell, "I love you," to each other. And then under her breath, Sloane says, "He's going to marry me." I thought this was so cute. Yeah.
And in the movie, he also says, "I meant what I said about the fact that I'm going to marry her."
Mm-hmm.
You know? Cute.
Very cute.
Ferris runs home, and he actually runs right into Jeni and his mom's car, but his mom doesn't see him. And Jeni sees him, and immediately she's just so angry, and she's caught him. So she steps on the gas to chase him and beat him home. And he runs through backyards and jumps fences and runs through people's houses to get to his house faster. And the race is on to see who can get home first. And Jeni even speeds and tries to outrun a cop, which is crazy. Crazy behavior.
Ferris does make it home seconds before his parents walk in, but as he walks up, who does he see at the back door? Mr. Rooney is still there.
What is he doing?
He's so disheveled and he's covered in mud from like falling off the side of the Bueller's house earlier. And he talks to Ferris, and as he's threatening to hold Ferris back a grade, Jeni opens the door and thanks Mr. Rooney for driving Ferris home because she was so worried. This is fake. Jeni is like making up this reason as she's talking to him. And so, yeah, Jeni thanks Mr. Rooney for driving Ferris home because she was so worried about him, and she winks at Ferris as she's saying this. And then to Mr. Rooney, she says, "Can you imagine someone as sick as Ferris trying to walk home from the hospital? Oh, kids. By the way, Mr. Rooney, you left your wallet on the kitchen floor." And then she throws it in the pool.
I love that she hates Ferris, but she hates Mr. Rooney more, and now they have this common enemy.
Yep.
And so in the end, she saves her brother, really.
Mm-hmm.
Ferris races upstairs and jumps back in bed. His parents check in on him and see that he's still sick. Ferris sucks up to them, and they totally buy it again. They tuck him in, and his mom says she'll bring him a cup of hot soup. They leave his room, and Ferris lets out a sigh of relief. He looks at the camera and repeats his iconic line to us from the beginning. He says, "Life moves pretty fast. If you don't look around once in a while, you could miss it."
As the credits roll, we see Mr. Rooney walking home, and he ends up getting picked up by a school bus full of students, and he sits next to a student that says, "I bet you never smelled a real school bus before." And then she pulls a gummy bear out of her pocket and gives it to him. This felt very Judd Apatow, like goofy to me.
Uh-huh.
And then Mr. Rooney looks up and sees that someone wrote "Rooney eats it" on the ceiling of the bus. And then he sees another student with "Save Ferris" written on their binder. And he just stares at the camera, like exhausted.
At the end of the credits, Ferris turns to the camera one last time and says, "It's over. Go home." And with that, the ultimate day off ends.
Yay.
Yay, that was so fun. I'm so glad we watched that.
Me too.
Such a
we
classic.
don't get to do like the 80s classics that often. And when we do, I love them every time.
Oh yeah, same.
If you guys have more recommendations for us that are in the same vein as 10 Things I Hate About You and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, please send them our way because I would love to do more movies like this.
Me too. I'm thinking Pretty in Pink, The Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club, we got to do that.
Dirty Dancing, like I said.
I've actually never seen Dirty Dancing.
I have only seen it as a kid and probably only bits and pieces of it, so I would love to watch it all the way through as an adult.
Definitely.
You guys let us know on Instagram at What We're Watching Pod.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.